Haven't seen him yet.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Namaste. Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Here we are. It's another perfectly fine Tuesday, and you decided to spend it with us. What's the matter with you? Okay, let's start by just getting a little still and brushing off the mind a little of the stuff of the week. Notice your breath and let it flow all the way down into the belly. If your breath is choppy and uneven, that reflects a little bit the quality of your mind. So just allow it to smooth out and the mind will come right along. We have two experiences. One is when we experience the world through the distracted mind. And it's jumpy and jumbled and confusing and unsettled and not safe. And the other one is that experience of our true nature, peaceful and still, that comes when we take away all the stressful thoughts and we discover that we live in a profoundly good and loving world that is so different from what we have come to believe, the world we have been trained to see. So let's come into the heart. Become still. And open to a new way of seeing through the eyes of the heart. So take a deep breath. Exhale. And let's attune ourselves with the sound of Om. Deep breath. This morning I got a phone call from a very old friend we've met in the early 70s, a dear friend for a long time. And he informed me that the doctors just found cancer in his body. They found it in lymph nodes. They don't know where it is right now. And he lost 30 pounds. He said, I wouldn't even recognize him because he hasn't been unable to eat. So we all know what such a piece of news means to our conditioned mind. The mind that identifies with body and personality, with everything that dies. It's an absolute disaster. But we're here to look at the mind, at our interpretation of reality in a different way. And so what I said to him was that this can only be excellent news, and we have to find how. So this is not a surface inquiry. For something like this, you have to look very deeply. And it's also not morbid at all, which is what some minds would interpret. It is an inquiry into the truth of such a message, such a situation. The truth that lies beyond the way we usually think, as I said. Now, last Tuesday, exactly a week ago, I was in North Carolina speaking to a dear friend whose daughter was diagnosed with a brain cancer. Okay, I need to just stop for a moment here. Technical problems. Testing. Good.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So I just visited his friend whose daughter was diagnosed with brain cancer. She's in the hospital. She's 2 years old. And this daughter was the apple of her eye, as we say, is the apple of her eye. And we spoke about her experience in an extraordinary way. Because we know what we would usually think about something like this and how a mother would experience that. And it's not that Zuleika's experience was different. It was the same as it would be for almost all of us. But she did something with it. And it changed. And she happens to be on the phone with us.
We'll call her now because she was busy with Sienna.
Okay. Yeah. I'll call her.
Are you available now? Okay, good. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Okay.
Can you speak up? Hi, Suleika.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So I just told a little bit that, what the background of the story is, and that I came to visit you last Tuesday. And thank you for being on this call with us.
Oh, of course. Okay.
So the first thing that Suleika told me, and you can probably fill in the details even more precisely, Suleika, but the first thing she told me when I came up there was that as this all was developing, as her daughter was diagnosed, which was just around Halloween, she had an experience. You woke up in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us that experience?
I have really been, I've been doing the work for a few years and working with Ramgiri for a few years as well. So there's a lot of, mental working that I have been doing prior to this. And I would go on daily walks in the morning, meditation. And one of the things that I was really coming into was thought and attachment to thought. But it never really clicked or came home, I guess, is, for lack of a better way to express it. But in the few days before my daughter got diagnosed, and I was telling her that this is a very pivotal part of, an important part of the whole experience for me, because it really set the stage for what was about to happen and how I was going to take that information in. You can go two ways with it, really. Kicking or screaming, or you can see it for what it is. And prior to her diagnosis, a few nights before, it was around 3 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up and I was hit with the thought, everything is nothing. And I just started cracking up, but a laughter from really deep inside. And there wasn't a single example that I could come up with after that wasn't showing me the truth behind that. And what that means is every single thing is a thought. And I would hear Byron Katie, who had once said, if you got all your thoughts and put it into a box, what do you have? You have nothing. So, stop me, Ramgiri, if I'm going off on.
No, you got it. Keep going.
Yeah, so, it was a profound realization. And I was desperate to get with Ramgiri or somebody who had more awareness and could tell me if what I was experiencing was what I was experiencing, because it was just, it was very funny. It was like a very big cosmic joke. So, a few days later, not very, very long after that, it had to have been probably within 30 hours, my daughter starts to, she had been experiencing vomiting for the last 6 months. Nobody could really figure out what it was. We had been to pediatricians, and the story was that she had food allergies, she had acid reflux, she had a virus, but they started to come closer together for episodes, and they were starting to, the sleeping was starting to accompany it for much longer periods of time. So I take her to school, she comes home, she sleeps for 5 or 6 hours, it's Halloween night. She wakes up reluctantly at the beginning, but then finally she goes trick-or-treating. That was the last night that she was alert and awake. She goes to sleep that night, and she slept for 17 hours straight and didn't wake up. Very hard to rise. I took her to the emergency room. And they sent us home. They, gave her IVs, all scratching their head. Well, does she have any events, or does she have any seizures or anything else? Nothing. She had no other neurologic findings except vomiting and sleeping. Which a person with a tumor that large inside their brain, they're going to have usually some neurologic deficit to go with it. Because it took up a third of her brain. So I go back anyway to do the MRI and they find this out. And did you tell them, Ramgiri, of when I sat with you a few years prior? And
No,
we talked about
let's not even go there. What I want to explain to make the story a little bit easier on everyone to understand is an interpretation of that experience that you had before all of this happened, which was this insight that we can only put into the words everything is nothing, right? Which is an expression that probably means nothing to the vast amount of people, right? So we need to explain this a little bit. You said it beautifully. You said that everything we experience is a thought, and images are thoughts too. Feelings are also experienced in the mind in the same way.
Yeah.
So when another way of understanding this concept of everything is nothing is when you look at your nighttime dreaming. At night you dream, and there's a whole world, and there's adventures and demons and accidents and wonderful things and love and drama, and then you wake up. And what was it all? It was nothing. It was an imagination of your mind. That's the nighttime dream, right?
Yeah.
Now, this world that we share, this is, in the spiritual traditions, the nighttime dream are called the little dream. This daytime world that we all share and experience is known as the long dream or the big dream. That what dreams it? The cosmic mind, which is a deep place of our own mind. And that cosmic mind dreams its world in all of us, but all of us have a different world. And to the awake mind, both versions of dream, the nighttime dream and the long dream of this world, are nothing. They're empty.
Yeah.
So this is the concept, and the Buddhists always talk about emptiness, right? That's exactly that. It's the perception that everything we experience does not have an inherent sense of reality in itself. Yet another way of understanding is that everything you experience, where does it take place? In your mind.
Completely in the mind.
Right? So my talking to you, the room you're in, the people you're with, your body, your history, all of it is experienced in the mind. And just like I said, if you take all your thoughts, all your experiences, you put them in a basket and you look at it, what do you see? Nothing. So these are different ways of helping us understand this experience that Suleika had just spontaneously, that prepared her for what was to follow. So why don't you take us a little bit through your experience of our meeting together and then what happened on Saturday?
When we met,
Yeah.
it was kind of the whole experience of arriving really at, and I'm assuming that you're talking about feeling peaceful about everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It was the being pushed, like you're saying, it's a dream state, and that's exactly what it is. Like, I remember walking into the hospital, and I remember there what it is. We don't know if she's going to have brain damage. We don't know that. So there's a long period of time in between there. And then the mind is going crazy. So I had moments in between these discoveries that I really had to sit with a lot of my thoughts. And then, when they came back with the diagnosis, and then doing, worksheets on each of these, and coming to, to that realization over and over again of, the thing was occurring in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you and I met, what portion of that are you?
Well, I'm just wondering if you could share sort of the essence of your experience, because this was sort of the first stage of shifting it into a different reality for you.
Well, a big moment for me was when they said she had cancer. She had the 25% chance to live. And there were two big things that obviously I struggled there. One, I told you my whole life I wanted a girl. Then here I am, she's 2 years old, and I think, like most parents in the world, the last thing that they want to do is lose a child. So I had big ones coming at me, very, very big ones. I think, you had told me in the conversation, two big things that carried me from the beginning to our meeting. And if this was our only path to God, I want to take that from her. And I knew that I didn't. And
So hold on a second. Let's just digest this, because this is a huge thing, right?
yeah,
So you see somebody suffering or going through whatever they're going through, right?
you're asking.
Of course, you are going to do whatever you can do to serve that person,
Yes.
right? So that goes without saying. So we're not arguing here about being passive or disconnected, right?
Absolutely.
I'm talking
not.
about how to connect more deeply. And then you ask yourself, if this, and you can take any person you see in a unfortunate circumstance, as we call it, right? As though there was a thing like that. So you see any person like that, and you ask yourself, if this was necessary on this person's path to God, would I want to take it from them? Just playing God here ourselves. Of course we can't. And of course it is their path to God, their path to enlightenment. Whatever's happening with them. So as an act of love, you would have to let them walk their walk, walk their path, while you can be fully there, serving them, loving them in whatever way you can.
That is I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is a very big part of this whole thing, that what you're talking about right now, is I could see that every single thought that rose up was only serving myself, that took away from serving her in a moment where she needed me the most.
Right.
And that was getting in the way of what my heart really wanted, was to love her.
Right. So, I want her to live, I want her to be well. And we think, oh, these are such good thoughts, but really, why do we want it? First of all, we want it for our convenience and for our comfort, because we feel damn uncomfortable about them being sick. Right?
In the worksheet that I did with Katie, that was one of the biggest realizations. I could not find a single example, because one of the things in my worksheet was that I didn't want her to die.
Yeah, right.
And I could not find a single example, not one, that was not serving myself. All of the reasons that I came up with were selfish.
Hold on a second. Because I want everybody to just go to the place where you were in a situation like this with someone who you saw as acutely suffering. And see if that, in some extent, you can see that about yourself, if it was so or not. Just make it personal. Go to your own experience. And then the next question is, what you just touched on, is this thought, I want her to live. Now, you want her to live. On one level, it's just because you want her. So again, it's for you. But then we have behind this idea that living is a lot better than dying. Now, one person who got that right was the Buddha, who saw that living in this world is a state of suffering. And what we do in our minds is we look at all the pleasures that we're chasing and we brush off the fact that being born is suffering. In life, you have some few breaks here and there, but there is old age, sickness, and death, and these are inevitable, and everybody experiences them. So who are we to say that it's better for someone else to live than to die? Who are we to say that? But yeah, we all agree on this. Yeah, it's much better to be alive than to die, you know? The sages are aware that we have everything backward. We should be crying when a baby is born and rejoice when someone dies. But maybe that's pushing it a little far for some people.
Well, I don't know. I have to say, as a mother is, a child that I always wanted, I can say that when we spoke and you came, that was a huge eye-opener for me. And you really, it's for the person who wants the truth, who's really seeking the truth, and who really wants to know, and to get really honest, I think, with myself. That is, life is suffering. And like what Katie was saying to me, and I'm not quoting her, but the gist of what she was saying to me that night when we spoke was, if you love somebody more than anything else in this world, wouldn't you want that for them? If one of her children were to die, she would be glad that it was over. And that's, for me, very true.
So let me just stop you there again. So what we're hearing from here is a mother of a little baby, beautiful little baby girl. And she can say that, and I hope you hear the truth in her voice. We are shifting a paradigm of tremendous proportions, a paradigm that we've clung to. Life is good. We gotta preserve life at all costs. When somebody dies, that's a terrible thing, etc., etc. And that way of thinking has got to create a tremendous amount of pain, because the fact is that we do get sick and we do die. And there's just no two ways about it. And if we live in a state where we fight what is, we live in a state of constantly losing the battle we are imaginarily waging. The battle with life, because we think it should be different than it is. That is madness speaking. Because it is not different than it is. It is what it is.
And it's very painful.
it's very painful to think that way. But if we don't think that way, something shifts. And it was beautiful. You know, on Saturday, Katie was here, and at dinner, we invited Zuleika to be with us. And over dinner, Katie and her did the work on this situation with her daughter. And it was just wonderful to see. First of all, it was wonderful, Zuleika, to see you bringing your pain into the focus where it became your desire for truth and freedom. Rather than this, you know, what do we do in pain? We strike out, we get stuck in it, all of this. Zuleika did none of this. And she did the work with Katie on this situation, and you could just see the transformation. It was just wonderful to watch. So tell us a little bit of who you are now, aside from being a work in progress, as we all are.
It was, I want to say again, thank you for that gift, and it's the rest of my life. I will never be the same person. But there's a profound peace that comes, one, from that much surrender, but also the realization, I think, of just, you know, like landing into the truth, the real truth, my heart truth, which is, you know, with all the BS that we're raised with, you know, like the selfishness, like you can see beyond that, you can see, you know, one's true nature. Loving my daughter more than anything else, you really could want them happy. That love, that happy, you want that authentically for them. And what that looked like for me was whatever was best for her, in however that was going to be for her. And it fell into place that where I was happy and was serving her, whichever way that looked.
And of course, let me say this again, of course, she will do absolutely everything to be in service to her daughter.
Yes.
And that includes giving her a mother who is not stuck in the drama, oh my God, what terrible thing is happening, my poor daughter, and then acting from fear. So
I also noticed, Ramgiri, that the more I did that, the less I was able to give her.
absolutely.
I was too preoccupied taking my wound to be of any type of useful service to her.
Right. And restricting her, like, you know, oh, don't be too active, you know, like being her mother with a sense of fear woven into it. Oh my God, if we're not really careful, I'll lose her, right? So there.
Like she's anything of mine to lose.
Right. And rather than that, to enjoy life with her fully while it lasts. And who knows, she may die long after you. But to live fully, in a sense, is an odd way of saying it, to make death worthwhile.
Yeah.
But we die before we die in a bad way, not in the spiritual way of that. You know, we're constricted and fear-filled and oh my God, what terrible thing could happen next? You know, it deadens us.
Yeah.
Who wants to live like that?
Right. That was one of my thoughts that we worked through was, you know, I didn't want her to die. Well, I'm killing her before her time, not letting her live.
Right, exactly.
While she's under my care.
Yeah, and you're killing yourself in the process.
Yeah, and I'm killing myself. And that's no way to live.
That's not what I call success in this situation.
Not only that, it feels miserable sometimes.
Yeah.
There's like,
Of course. Yeah. Sort of, the worst I saw, what we imagine to be the worst suffering in the world turn into a state of brilliant acceptance and joy over Mexican dinner. And it's due to Katie's amazing genius to see people and work with people, and that is available to all of us in the skill of the work, right? Now, the particularly wonderful thing that I saw was over this dinner was another demonstration of how deep that working with the mind can go. How we can really address our deepest fears. And we don't have to wait until they happen. That happened to Suleika. But for all of us, we don't have to wait until something triggers those deepest fears. We can go and look for it and say, I am willing to experience this now. I'm willing to set myself free from whatever it is that oppresses me, or I should say, with which I oppress myself. Although we don't do it consciously, make it conscious and free yourself.
yeah.
What's waiting for us is a tremendous joy and a great light of awareness, which are our true nature, which are hidden from us by the ways of thinking that we're indoctrinated into when we're children in our society. These ways of thinking that things are terrible and you better be careful and you never know what's going to happen, and so on.
Yeah.
So there is a world here for us on the other side of our conditioned thinking that is amazing and powerful and free beyond our wildest dreams. So Suleika, is there anything else you want to add or anything else?
I've come to realize that free of that, what is left is a person able and willing with gratitude to serve. And in that, there's so much love. So much love. A taste of that is when you buy a gift for somebody, let's say on Christmas, and you're so excited to give it to them, and just handing them that gift, how your heart's just gonna burst with excitement, like you found the perfect gift for this person. This is it. Like to live in that love, state of love, all the time.
Right. Yeah. And I have to say, when I came up to North Carolina to visit, and we came to the hospital, all I saw was there was this amazing bubble of love around her daughter. Just amazing. Everybody was just there in this tremendous sense of love. Now, I'm not commenting on what was maybe in some people's minds, but that was the reality I felt and saw without any negative interpretation. So this little soul, maybe not so little, but in a little body, came in here and created this scenario of tremendous love, and the scenario in which her mother is able to really enlighten herself in so many ways. And then we'll see whether she decides to leave or to go. Or to stay, rather. You know, and it's totally up to her or totally up to God, however you see it. And we can be there as a joyous presence supporting whatever the outcome may be. Because this is what poisons us. When we do what we do but we do it conditionally in order to get a certain outcome. Like, okay, I'm going to do everything for her, but so she would live. That is not love. That's a horse trade. Okay, I'm going to do that, but I want this. Love is simply being there. Being there with an open heart, a clear mind, and all the love in your being, which is complete love. Okay?
Yes, so true, Ramgiri. I want that for every person on this planet. Only I can say.
Well, then get it for yourself in such a way that it no longer leaves you ever. That way you get it for all of us, because all of us are in your mind.
Such a beautiful day.
So while I'm here and I have Suleika on the phone, are there any questions? Is there anything that you would want to ask me or her? Any comments? Anyone online have anything to add? I hope you can hear her voice good and loud and clear. It is our job. Why? Because we're clear enough to even understand that that's possible. It is our job to remove from our minds the habitual and blind ways of interpreting things as negative, as terrible, as fearful. It is our job to become free. Now, first of all, of course, we do it for us. But only when we set ourselves free can that light shine from us. Can that comfort that is not caused by anything other than what we are be shared amongst us. It's like we, by doing this, by setting ourselves free, we reduce the real estate of suffering in this world. Oh, I think I hear Sienna. That's Sienna.
Rose says, I'm deeply touched by her realization of peace.
Thank you, Rose. She did rather well, so did you today.
And thank you for sharing your story, she says.
Okay, I guess you're busy with childcare.
Oh, sorry.
I guess you're going to be busy with childcare.
Is that the baby that was sick?
It's the baby.
Thank you, Ramgiri. I love
The
you.
baby's not in a coma? The baby is...
I'm sorry?
Oh, what's the condition of the child now?
She's happy.
Going through chemo. She's going through a round of chemo.
She's
Okay.
happy.
She's happy. Yes.
And happy.
Now, yes.
Thanks, Suleika.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. You can stay on here or leave as you like. We're going to turn the speakerphone off, but I'm going to keep the phone on so you can stay with us if you'd like, okay?
Okay, thank you, Ramgiri.
Welcome.
Powerful.
And it doesn't matter what it is that is going to happen to each one of us. It doesn't matter, because it can only lead to good. It can lead to more freedom. Because if something happens and it brings up our negative, scary thoughts, what's the worst that can happen? That you come to realize they're not true. But don't take my word for it, because that's just going to be another strange theory. Work on it. Take any stressful thought that you have and question it. Take your mind as a whole and allow it to become still. the core of meditation, the core experience of all of yoga is to bring your attention into your heart of hearts, your spiritual heart, and find the tremendous joy that has no cause, that is just what you are, that is present in your heart. And the light, the luminosity that is inherent in your being. That is the core. That's why anyone does yoga or meditation or anything else. And when something occurs in your life that appears to be the opposite of that, stressful, painful, scary, that's our work, to set us free of that. Because that is the only source of pain in our world. How we interpret things, how we look at things through eyes that have been half blinded from the way we've been taught to think. This is not something we need to create. This is already our true state that's in us. This is not something we need to find, like spiritual seekers, you know. What are we looking for? We're looking for us, the way we truly are, beyond the stressful thoughts and negative emotions and the veiling of the mind that's called ego. It's already who we are. If we finally relax for once, there it is. That's why we feel good, when we're relaxing. When we're going to sleep at night, we touch right that space. We touch it unconsciously, but we go to that space. And then we wake up and say, oh, I had a great night's sleep. Why? Because we touch on that place where we are free, where we are happiness itself. So, what does it look like to go to a hospital where there's a little girl with a shaved head and very funny looking hats? It looks like this amazing place of love. This way of peeling away delusion as her mother did. And finding a heart that cannot be shaken by even the worst that can happen. So the question is, can we invite the worst that can happen? Not invite like, come on already, but can we be open to that? Can we be, or let's say become, established in the skill of living with the practices that remove delusion and the sources of suffering? Can we live in such a way? Then we can become fearless. Because the worst that can happen is that you become free of yet something else you can't yet see as good.
Can you repeat that, Ramgiri, or clarify that?
No way.
Or just explain it, because I didn't get that.
The essence of what I'm saying is that when you deeply look at whatever it is that is inciting negative reactions in you, fearful reactions, thoughts, stress of any kind, when you deeply look at it, the stress And the unhappiness is not inherent in what you're looking at, but in the way you're looking. They are a function of your thinking and your mind, your conditioned mind. That you can change, and that's our job, that's our work. So whenever something happens that brings up stressful thoughts, those stressful thoughts are our work. Now what we think then is, oh, I can be happy again when that situation is fixed. When that person treats me better, or when I'm free of that person, or something like this. Not at all the case. Because that person or situation will then simply be replaced by another one. And we stay in that merry-go-round of our habitual way of suffering. The solution is when we look at how we are thinking, how we are experiencing, how we are, through our interpretation of things, creating suffering for us. That is what sets us free. And that is how a mother whose child is right there with her can be in a state of joy and openness and peace. And therefore be fully there for herself as well as for her daughter. So that's open to all of us. And life is kind in that it will give us training opportunities. Trust me. But we don't have to wait until they come. I have one person I've talked to, and he is facing a multi-year prison sentence. And he's still walking around, but the legal situation is unfolding, and he is probably going to go away for a long time. What an opportunity to prepare the mind now to be ready to deal with the situation that you see coming, right? Great opportunity. Because for the rest of us, we just think, oh yeah, it's never going to happen to us. Like my friend, suddenly he can't eat. This has gone on for weeks. So now just today he found out that there's cancer in his body. That's not an isolated situation. We're all like this. Cheery thought. But you see, it's like we know that this human situation is terminal. Katie has a funny way of saying it. She says, I just love when I go to all these airports where she's traveling a lot and I inhale these kerosene fumes. I just love that, because how else could I die on time? So the point is, live fully. Live fully. And if there's something that gets in the way, which could only be your mind, clear it out. Love yourself enough to do that, instead of distracting yourself, finding something else to run after, finding something else to defend from. The way we waste our lives thinking we're doing it right, and we're having so much fun. Fun is different than joy. Fun is what we run after, pleasure. So we run after. Pain is what we run away from. And that's a pendulum swing going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Every time you get to pleasure, you buy yourself pain, because that pleasure is going to be over very quickly. And then we swing back here. And then we push it back this way again. And this can go on for uncounted lifetimes. We've all done it. When is it going to be enough? And then you seek, rather than staying on this pleasure-pain continuum, we're seeking the unmoving center from where the pendulum swings, which happens to be the heart. And we let go of what does not serve, that quest for that peace in us that is unshakable and true.
She also talked about that at the end of all this inquiry is that question of who am I? So when we find that who we are, there is no stress in the thinking mind whatsoever. So we identify with the body and then we think we're going to die. I just wanted to comment that sort of in that clear mind of somebody who has not had perhaps any background of spiritual work or anything related to that question of who am I, and that's where her investigating of thoughts lead to.
Her, you mean Katie's, body.
Yes,
Katie's, yeah.
right.
Mhm.
And then after that, what is left, as she said, is just unconditional love
Exactly.
towards self, which includes everything, everyone.
And we had a beautiful moment. We had lunch together, and she knows my focus, which is on the heart and on love, right? And her focus is, of course, helping people get free of the mind, of the stressful mind, right? And we're having lunch, and she says, I'm totally with you, Ramgiri. This love is the main thing. And she said a beautiful thing. She said, it was love that broke me. It wasn't the inquiry. It was love that broke me. Broke me what? Breaking open the jail of the mind that always finds something to criticize and judge. Breaking open the heart. Breaking that veil of thinking we're separate. Thinking we're somebody and somebody who has to defend themselves from a hostile world. Separate from other beings, separate from soul. The one soul that we all are. Love is what breaks us out of that. Please.
Self-love or being open to the love, to receive love from others?
It's all ultimately the same thing. Self-love. What is self-love? You know, people get confused because there's people who are narcissists. Narcissism has nothing to do with love. It's a deep, disturbed mind. It's a celebration of the false self, the ego. Self-love cannot be distinguished from love for all things. What is the self? Where is the self not? The self is the same. Your innermost core is the same as the presence of God in you. It's the same as the inner guru, the true guru. To love that self means to love everything without exception. Means to be that love, to remove everything else. So what's left is that place where love is reflected back to you from everywhere, from the walls, from the ceiling, from the air you breathe. Love is all that's left. And that happens very simply by not thinking that something could be other than that. Now, how do we get to it is just like what Suleika showed us. To take the most difficult things in our lives, and that may be the hangnail you're suffering from at some moment. Doesn't have to be a huge thing, right? The most difficult thing in your life is the difficult thing you're dealing with now. To take that and see that the difficulty is nothing. The difficulty is what you add to it. That's not easy to do because our conditioning goes deep, but it does not go as deep as the heart. So beyond the conditioning, there's always that place of freedom. And this whole world is waiting for you to do that. The people in your world are looking for you to learn this, because this is radically different from the way we've been taught to think. This doesn't make it a burdensome duty. It makes it an opportunity to express your love by freeing yourself. How else are you going to teach love? Anyone else? Keep me going.
Why have we done this to ourselves?
Why have we done this to ourselves? You know, it's a great question that we all tend to have at one point. The problem with the why questions is that we don't get any answers, right? And so we just find ourselves in that situation, right? We might call it confusion. But even if you just understand that there's confusion, just that understanding, you don't say, oh, it's just the way it is. Confusion is just the way it is. Unhappiness is just the way it is. No, you see confusion as confusion. That already gives you the ability to ask the next question, which is, how do I clear it? How do I set myself free? Right? So the how question is what gets us someplace. The why question, we can stay in that place for a long time, and many people have, and it just doesn't help us, right? I'm glad you asked it, because it is in everyone's mind, but it stays. Even if there was an answer, it would just be more information. So what? We are in this situation. When you're in a house that's on fire, do you ask, where's the matchbox that lit it? Or do you get the hell out of the house? So I think that's what we should do. And our house is on fire. And it's a good thing. It's an excellent thing that our house is on fire. Back to my friend who got the news today of cancer. His house is on fire, and the only thing that's possible here for here to happen is that he can escape into freedom. That's the only thing. So where's the problem? Cancer. Where's the problem with anything that can happen? If that is the only possibility, the only possible outcome, that we escape into freedom.
So cancer gives him the opportunity. It's a stimulus.
You know, life gives us the opportunity. All of life. The question is, can we grab the opportunity and use it, right? Now, I know my friend enough that I know he will do that. He will grab this opportunity and not just stay in the complaint of this shouldn't be happening, you see, which is absolutely worthless. It just creates more suffering and terror. Yeah, it is happening. Then you go, what is it good for? How does it serve me? And you get out of the house of the burning mind into freedom. And that freedom, you know, the outdoors, what is the outdoors outside of this metaphorical house? It's the heart. It's free.
So it's possible to accept the cancer diagnosis and yet fight it at the same time?
Well, what choice do you have but to accept it? It's there. But you see, accepting is just one thing. It's like, what does it mean? Right? This is the next question. What does it mean? What does it mean that Suleika's daughter has cancer? It means that this incredible bubble of love is happening around that girl. And of course, everybody's doing their very best to help her and to get healthy. Absolutely. You know, that has to be understood. And not to fall into a place of fear, not to fall into the place of getting angry at God, not to fall into the place of any kind of suffering from it, so we can be present and serve.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of those stories, those incredibly inspiring stories you hear of people who do get cancer, and for them it lights a fire within them to want to live and fight the cancer.
Yeah.
So they fight the cancer with their will, with their passion, with their love to want to live. And then, you know, you hear these incredible stories where they actually do. I don't think they're coming from a place of fear. They're coming from a passion to live and not accept the cancer in their body.
See, I have worked with people with cancer for a long time, because I had cancer. I had a cancer diagnosis twice myself, or once close to it, the first time I had it. And about 20 years ago, when you would ask people, just your general cancer patient, you would ask them, so you got this diagnosis, you went through this experience, maybe, let's say, you know, after they're actually well again, right? You'd ask them, what good came out of that? They'd sort of bristle at the question even. Maybe 5 years after they healed, they could stop and they could start to think, well, come to think of it, it really helped me to understand what's important in life. It helped me to understand the importance of love. It got me to see who really was there for me and cared for me. Things like that. So they begin to understand that something actually very good happened through that experience, right? But that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. When you would do that, it would be 5 years after they got well, right? Now, not too long ago, I was in a cancer support community here, and I was working with that group of people, maybe about 20 people. All had cancer in various stages. Some were well, but most of them were still in chemo and definitely going through it. All of them told me it was a blessing before I even asked. So something has happened in this community because of what they get to read, and the general awareness about this disease has really shifted in the last 20 years. And there's a spiritual understanding that is very common now, I'm very glad to say, that says, yeah, this is rough and hard, but a great blessing comes out of it, you know?
But Ramgiri, if I interpret Karen's question, when you get a diagnosis of cancer, you still do whatever is under your power.
Of course, because
with
that's
passion and compassion to do what you can to
Of course,
prolong your
we're,
life.
we're
And if it's,
conditioned, we're embodied beings, and the body has a condition to want to continue to live, right? So of course we do that, absolutely, and love would do that.
so
but
we
we
do
can
that.
do it without
Right.
seeing something terrible in the situation.
With clarity.
That's the important thing, you see? So it goes without saying that we would do anything to help ourselves, to help someone else who's ill. That goes without saying. But we can do that without stressing ourselves, scaring ourselves, and becoming completely restricted, constricted beings over it.
Mm.
In other words, for many people, it takes getting seriously sick in order to start to live. Because before they get cancer, they're already like this. That's the common state of how we live. And somebody getting the challenge that such an illness represents, it can really open them up. But it takes working with your own mind.
There is a question on the chat. Rose says, how about the who question? Who has cancer? Who is suffering? This goes around to being with what is as it is.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, what are you? To the extent that you identify with the body, which is where we all start, let's be clear, you're going to freak out. Your thinking is going to freak out because you think you're going to lose yourself, because you're in danger of losing this body. So this way of looking that we're talking about here is not a small thing. It has to be seen in context. It has to be seen in the awareness that what you are is not this body and this personal history and these likes and dislikes. In other words, your person. You are not this person. You are the one who observes that person, that consciousness inside of you that cannot be killed. So we live our lives and we attend to the vehicle. The vehicle is our person, the person we think we are. And it needs to get up in the morning and brush its teeth and have breakfast and go to work and make money and have lunch and have social situations and have fun and have creativity and all of that stuff going for itself, right? And we pay no attention to who we are that is having that experience of being this temporary person. And that who we are, that consciousness, just cannot die. It's just not an option. You leave one body, you have a little intermezzo called the bardo, then you go into another body, then you have another body, you have another body, you have another body. And every one of these embodiments involves pain and suffering. And the immature soul is greedy for more experience. Oh, I want that, I want this, I want this. And we do that lifetime after lifetime after lifetime until the soul gets a little bit hip on what's going on. And maybe the desire level goes down a little bit, and we can desire less this experience of embodiment and more to know, what is it that is experiencing all of this? In other words, what am I? And that consciousness that we are does not know fear. It is love itself.
thing about what Karen was saying also, 'cause I've been interested in that and read about dying in remissions from cancer and stuff. And when you're in the drama, the "oh God, I'm dying" story has a chemical component.
Yeah,
It creates acidity in the blood and actually creates an environment where cancer is more likely to grow.
of course, your immune system goes in the
It
basement.
goes haywire. When people have the opposite, they seem to, it's not that they're fighting the cancer, but that they're embracing life with a passion. That's a whole different set of chemicals.
And not out of fear or
Passion
escape,
for life.
but just realizing, you know, there's a beautiful video with Katie working with a gentleman who had cancer of the eye. I was actually there. I was taken in LA many years ago. And he was brilliant. And the cancer was growing. And she asked him, you can look that up, just type in Byron Katie in YouTube, type in Byron Katie and cancer. This one will come up and you'll notice the eye patch. And she asked him, his thought was, one of his thoughts was, I want this cancer to stop growing. And she asked him again and again, the truth of the turnaround, I don't want the cancer to stop growing. Why? And he came up with brilliant answers. And his bride was sitting in the front row. And the love between them was just brilliant. There's a little bit of that in the video. They cut it down to 6 minutes. It was, of course, a much longer piece of work.
What were his answers like?
In essence, his answer was, I don't want the cancer to stop growing because it has made me more alive and more loving than I've ever been. So the people who embrace life, some of them get well and some of them don't. And it's both equally good. There's a story of my guru in India. You have this relationship with a guru who is a being, ideally, who lives in this place of absolute being, absolute peace. And they know that it was very clear that he could take on illnesses from people. He took my cancer, so I know firsthand. And one of the ways they dispense grace and blessings is through food that is imbued with the power that they have, right? And so one of his devotees, old-time devotees, was dying, and his family came and said, "Oh, please, brother, help him, save him," And he took a banana and told him, did something with that banana, and told them to take the banana, mash it up, and feed it to him. And he said he was going to be okay. And so they took the banana, mashed it up, fed it to him, and he died. And I guarantee you, he was okay. We are so attached to life, aren't we? Right. So then that's what we get. We get life with everything that's in the package, which is, as the Buddha said, old age, sickness, and death. And it's okay. Everything's okay. If you want more of that, there's plenty available. Uncounted lifetimes are available. Help yourself. It's a smorgasbord. If you want freedom, that's also available. If you want to know the absolute bliss of being your own true nature, your divine nature, that's also available. It's up to us.
So the only thing that stands in the way of that is the mind. Is it true?
But it's not even standing in the way of that. It's just doing its job, what it thinks is right.
Okay, so
It's part
believing
of
the
the-
mind.
But it's part of the package.
Believing the mind is part of the package.
Well, some people believe the mind. That's their stage of evolution. And it's right for them. Who's to say this is wrong? And they're heading for another stream of incarnations. And it's perfectly fine. It's like, we're not doing it. We're not the ones who decide, oh, it's going to be this way or that way. Who gave you the awareness to sit in a round like this and talk like that? Was that you? Or did it come because it was time? We're being lived. We are not in charge, living, deciding this and that. We're being lived. And when you can understand that, get back to you in a second. When you can understand that and surrender to that, it's a wonderful way of life. Because you don't have to worry about anything. It's like, oh, God is in charge. The Sufis call him the friend. Hell of a friend to have. Let him be in charge. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna drives the chariot. Arjuna is the passenger, the warrior in the chariot. The chariot is your person, the vehicle. The horses are the senses. The reins are the way you control the senses or not. But God is the driver. Krishna is the driver. So if we live life like that, everything turns to be a fantastic blessing. And we still have to do the fighting of the war, the metaphorical war, right? If somebody's sick, we bring the medicine. We do what life requires of us. But we know that God is in charge, that we're being lived. Rosemary.
The work, the way I see it, is not, it's more this way. This belief in God and prayer, there's metaphysical, such as the teachings of unity, being able to heal ourselves by positive thoughts, mind, body. And then there's the work, which is, I think, is a process of understanding our misguided thoughts and taking charge of that in some ways. So I have difficulty reconciling these three. I know they're all one, but I see them in three different buckets that I'd like to find or accept more of a total.
Look at what was the first? I got the metaphysical and
God, prayer,
right,
and putting
And faith
and faith in what we don't understand in higher in the higher power of the universe. Then there's unity in the sense of the classic way of healing ourselves and having that mind-body relationship of metaphysical. And then the work.
Just look at it through the eyes of love. It's all different forms of love. And for some people, this is the perfect way, for other people that, for other people that, right? And every soul finds its way. Everyone has a different trip and different journey. And the right things come to everybody. You know, somebody who's not ready can sit next to the greatest saint and ask him for a cigarette. You know? And somebody else can see that man and fall at his feet, as I've seen happen, because they recognize who that is. I had an experience at a Mela in India where I walked with a number of Western and Indian sadhus back in '74. And some guy, very skinny guy, walks past us, and he is dressed in just like a dirty rag. Nothing, I mean, just nothing. Just one little dirty rag around his waist. And we walked past him, there was like thousands of people, right? We walked past him, and something happened in my experience. I just like, and I only recognized that really in retrospect. Something up here happened, some shift of energy way over the head, right? And then I'm walking a few more steps like in a trance, and I'm going like, what just happened? And I turn around, and one in our group, an Indian sadhu who had like picked up who that was, or what that was flat on the ground, pranaming, bowing to this great being, who was one of those yogis that just didn't want to be known. Walked around like the dirtiest and poorest of beggars. And I didn't recognize it in time. I wasn't sharp enough, but this friend of mine just got it. So what we see, what we get is always right for us. And if we concentrate our entire yearning on whatever we call enlightenment, whatever that is, it's something different for everybody, right? Because it has a personal stamp on it through your experience. For some people it's great peace, other people it's love, other people it's wisdom and knowledge, etc. But if we just have this yearning for whatever it is that is the highest possible experience, that we're being shown, we're being taken from one skill, a discipline, or group of people to another, to another, to another, in the way that serves us perfectly. And sometimes also into groups that may end up to be quite inappropriate. But that's also a learning experience some of us have to have. So it's all good. So let's take a moment and sort of just go back into the heart to digest all of this. Just breathe very simply in and out of the heart, and let what we just spoke about settle into you. So what is appropriate for you can be accepted, can be assimilated. What is not yet right for you can be discarded. And behind it all is that great all-embracing peace that you are. So take a deep breath. Exhale and just close with one deep and peaceful Om. Deep breath again. Thank you. Namaste.